Mystical City of God, translated from the original Spanish by Michael Kress, read by the translator. Book 1, Chapter 21. The Blessed Birth of Mary, her divine favors, and the name given in heaven and earth. The joyous day arrived, the blessed birth of Saint Anne's child, the one sanctified and consecrated to be the Mother of God Himself. This sacred birth took place on the 8th day of September, exactly 9 full months after the conception of the most holy soul of our Queen and Lady. Saint Anne was given an interior enlightenment by God, revealing to her that the hour of her delivery was near. Filled with the joy of the divine Spirit, she listened attentively to His voice, prostrating herself in prayer and asking for the Lord's grace and protection to bring forth her child in safety. At that moment, she felt the natural movement of the infant in her womb, preparing to enter the world. Simultaneously, by divine providence and power, the most blessed little girl, Mary, was taken up into an exalted ecstasy, completely absorbed in a heavenly vision. Thus, she was born into the world without perceiving it through her senses. Had the divine will allowed her to experience the event naturally, she would have known it through her senses, as she already possessed the use of reason. Yet, God in His wisdom ordained it otherwise, so that the Princess of Heaven would not experience the usual pangs of birth, but would instead enter the world in a state of divine rapture. She was born pure, immaculate, radiant, and filled with grace, openly proclaiming by her very being that she was exempt from the law and burden of original sin. Although she was born in human nature, like all the other children of Adam, she entered the world with such extraordinary blessings and supernatural gifts that her birth was both miraculous and marvelous, a cause for eternal praise to the Creator. This divine light of the world emerged at the midnight hour, symbolically dividing the darkness of the old law from the dawn of grace that was soon to break forth. She was wrapped in swaddling clothes and cared for like any other newborn, though her mind remained fixed on the divinity. She was treated as a helpless infant, yet her wisdom surpassed that of all mortals and even the angels. Saint Anne herself attended to her child, wrapping her in linens with her own hands, unhindered by the usual postpartum ailments, for she was spared the pains and hardships that ordinarily afflict mothers after childbirth. Saint Anne received into her hands the one who, though her daughter, was the greatest treasure of heaven and earth in human form, second only to God Himself, yet superior to all creation. With fervent love and tears of gratitude, she lifted her up to the Lord, offering this most precious gift back to Him with these words from her heart: Lord of infinite wisdom and power, Creator of all that has being, the fruit of my womb, which I have received from your goodness, I offer back to you in eternal gratitude, knowing that I have not deserved such a blessing. Do with your daughter and mine as pleases your most holy will. Look upon our lowliness from the heights of your majesty, and be glorified forever. For you have enriched the world with a creature so pleasing to you. In her, you have prepared a dwelling place and tabernacle, Wis 9:8, where your eternal word will one day reside. To my holy ancestors and the prophets, I announce this joyous news, and in their name, I give thanks to you for the sure sign you have given of the world's redemption. But how shall I, unworthy even to be her servant, care for the one you have given me as a daughter? How shall I dare to touch the true ark of the covenant? Lord and King, grant me the wisdom I need to know and fulfill your will in a way that pleases you and serves my child. The Lord spoke to the holy matron, instructing her to care for the divine child as a mother would her daughter in external matters, without showing outward reverence, though maintaining it within her heart. She was to fulfill her role as a true mother, raising her child with love and devotion. Saint Anne faithfully obeyed this command, and while exercising this maternal right, she tenderly cherished her holy daughter, treating and nurturing her as other mothers do, yet with deep awareness of the profound and sacred mystery unfolding between them. Meanwhile, the guardian angels of the infant Mary, joined by a vast multitude of celestial spirits, adored and reverenced her as she lay in her mother's arms, offering heavenly music in her honor. Saint Anne was granted a faint hearing of these melodies, though she did not fully perceive their magnificence. The 1,000 angels assigned to the custody of the great Queen presented themselves, and dedicated themselves to her service. This was the first time the divine infant beheld them in corporeal form, adorned with distinctive insignias, as will be described in a later chapter. The newborn Mary, filled with wisdom beyond her years, requested that they praise the Almighty alongside her and in her name. At the very moment of Mary's birth, the Most High sent the holy Archangel Gabriel to announce this joyous event to the souls of the just in limbo. The celestial messenger swiftly descended, illuminating that shadowy dwelling with divine radiance and filling the waiting souls with gladness. He proclaimed that the dawn of eternal joy and redemption had begun, long desired and foretold by the prophets. The one who was to be the mother of the promised Messiah had now been born, and soon they would behold the salvation and glory of the Almighty. The Holy Prince of Heaven revealed to them the extraordinary graces bestowed upon Mary and the great work that God had already begun in her. Upon hearing this, all the patriarchs, prophets, and just souls in limbo rejoiced in spirit, lifting up new hymns of praise to the Lord for this immeasurable blessing. Shortly after these wondrous events, as our Queen beheld the light of the material sun, she became aware through her senses of her natural parents and the surrounding world, her first encounter with earthly life. Yet, the power of the Almighty was preparing an even greater wonder beyond human understanding. The Lord commanded an innumerable host of angels to carry the infant Mary, both body and soul, into the empyrean heaven. Obedient to this divine decree, the celestial princes received the infant Mary from her mother's arms and arranged a solemn procession. With songs of incomparable joy, they bore the true ark of the new covenant, not to the house of Obed-Edom, as in ancient times, but to the very temple of the supreme King of kings and Lord of lords, where she was to be enthroned for all eternity. This was the second step in the earthly life of the Blessed Virgin, her journey from the world into the highest heavens. Who can adequately praise this marvelous wonder wrought by the hand of the Almighty? Who can express the joy and reverence of the heavenly spirits as they beheld this unprecedented miracle among the works of the Most High? With hymns of new and celestial praise, they welcomed their Queen and Lady, chosen to be the mother of the one who was to be their divine head. They understood that she was the reason for the grace and glory they themselves possessed, for it was through the foreseen merits of Christ that they had been redeemed. Yet, who among mortals can grasp the mystery that unfolded within the soul of this tender infant, the recipient of such extraordinary divine favor? This knowledge remains veiled in sacred mystery, reserved for the understanding of those who, in the presence of the Lord, will one day behold it clearly. May we, through his infinite mercy, one day join in this celestial vision, face to face. The infant Mary was carried by the angels into the highest heavens, the Empyrean, and prostrated herself in adoration before the royal throne of the Almighty. In this moment, as we might understand it, a reality unfolded that had once been prefigured in Scripture. Just as King Solomon rose from his throne to receive his mother Bathsheba, honoring her and seating her beside him as queen, so too did the eternal Word receive the infant Mary. He welcomed her to his throne and granted her possession of her future dignity as his mother and the queen of all creation. Yet, in her humility, Mary remained unaware of her own exalted status and the unfathomable mysteries unfolding around her. To prepare her for these graces, divine power strengthened her, elevating her faculties to new heights. Her soul was infused with new gifts and illumination, proportioned to the grandeur of what was being revealed. For the first time, God granted the Blessed Virgin a direct vision of his divine essence. In this moment of supreme grace, he unveiled his divinity to her in an intuitive and beatific manner of the highest degree, her first experience of the Beatific Vision. The full glory of this vision, the mysteries revealed to the infant Mary, and the divine effects upon her pure soul were known only to the author of this sublime miracle. Even the angels could only glimpse part of this sacred mystery. Yet, as she stood at the right hand of the Lord who was to become her son, gazing upon him face to face, she prayed with a petition more perfect than Bathsheba's request for Abishag. She pleaded for the inaccessible divinity to be given to human nature, her own kindred, so that the eternal promise might be fulfilled. She implored that the divine word descend from heaven to unite himself with humanity in the hypostatic union, a union so often promised through the patriarchs and prophets. With deep compassion for the fallen world, she asked God to hasten the long-awaited redemption, for sin was multiplying, and countless souls were perishing. The Most High received this petition with supreme delight, and better than Solomon, he assured his mother that he would soon fulfill his promises. He vowed that he would descend to the world, take on human flesh, and accomplish the redemption of mankind. In this divine council of the Most Holy Trinity, the time had come to name the infant queen. Since no name is truly legitimate unless it is decreed in the immutable being of God, who orders all things with wisdom and measure, the Lord himself willed to give her this name from heaven. He revealed to the angelic spirits that from all eternity, the three divine persons had decreed and formed the most sweet names of Jesus and Mary for the Son and his mother. These names had been cherished in the eternal mind of God before all ages, and had been inscribed upon every work of creation, for all things were made for their glory. At that moment, the celestial host heard a voice from the throne of the Eternal Father proclaiming, "Our chosen one shall be called Mary, and this name shall be wonderful and magnificent. Those who invoke it with devout affection shall receive an abundance of grace. Those who honor and pronounce it with reverence shall be consoled and enlivened. In this name, all shall find remedy for their afflictions, treasures with which to enrich themselves, and light to guide them to eternal life. It shall be terrible to hell itself, crushing the serpent's head and obtaining glorious victories over the powers of darkness." The Lord commanded the angelic spirits to announce this most blessed name to Saint Anne, so that what had been established in heaven might be fulfilled on earth. The divine infant Mary, lying prostrate before the throne, humbly and gratefully received her name with ineffable sweetness, lifting up celestial hymns of praise in response. If one were to recount all the graces and privileges bestowed upon her in that moment, it would require a book of immense volumes. The holy angels, recognizing her anew as the future mother of the Word and their queen, adored and venerated her. They prostrated themselves at the pronunciation of her name, as the voice of the Eternal Father echoed from the throne. Those angels who bore her name as their insignia displayed their divine mark in reverence, and all together they sang hymns of praise for these most hidden and wondrous mysteries. Yet, despite this celestial honor, the infant queen remained unaware of the full dignity awaiting her as the mother of the incarnate Word, for this was to remain hidden from her until the time of the Annunciation. With the same joy and reverence, the angels returned the divine child to the arms of Saint Anne, who remained unaware of her daughter's temporary absence. The Lord, in his providence, ensured that her absence was concealed by one of Mary's guardian angels, who took on an aerial form to substitute for her in that moment. Additionally, while the infant Mary was in the empyrean heavens, her mother Saint Anne was granted a sublime ecstasy of contemplation. Though she did not know what was occurring with her child, she was enlightened with deep mysteries regarding Mary's future dignity as the Mother of God. The prudent and holy matron treasured these revelations in her heart, pondering them in preparation for the great mission that lay ahead for her daughter. On the 8th day after the birth of the great queen, a magnificent host of angels descended from the heights of heaven. They appeared in radiant splendor, each carrying a shield inscribed with the resplendent and luminous name Maria. Manifesting themselves to the Blessed Mother, Saint Anne, they announced that her daughter's name, divinely ordained, was to be Mary. They revealed that divine providence had decreed this name, and it was now time for Anne and Joachim to bestow it upon her. Summoning her husband, Saint Anne shared with him the divine will concerning their daughter's name. Overcome with holy joy and devotion, Joachim received this revelation with gratitude. Together, they resolved to gather their relatives and summon a priest, so that the naming of their daughter could be celebrated with solemnity and festivity. In a grand and joyful ceremony, they publicly declared the name Mary for their newborn child. As this sacred event unfolded on earth, the angels rejoiced in heavenly hymns, singing a celestial symphony of praise. Only Saint Anne and the infant Mary were permitted to hear this divine music. Thus, our heavenly princess received her name, bestowed upon her by the most holy Trinity in heaven on the day of her birth, and confirmed on earth on the 8th day. When the time came for Saint Anne to present her daughter at the temple in accordance with the law, the name Mary was officially recorded, as will be recounted later. Cf. Infra N 345-360. This birth was unlike any other seen before, for in no other pure creature had such an event taken place. This was the most blessed birth ever known to nature. An infant whose very first day of life was not only untainted by the stain of sin, but more pure and holy than the highest seraphim. Moses' birth was celebrated for the beauty and elegance of the child, yet all such beauty was external and perishable. But how much more radiant was our great infant Mary! Oh, how beautiful you are! Oh, how beautiful! You are altogether lovely and delightful. She possessed every grace and beauty in perfect fullness, lacking nothing. The birth of Isaac was the joy and laughter of Abraham's household, a miracle of divine promise granted to a barren mother. Yet its greatest glory was merely a foreshadowing of the true joy that would be fulfilled in Mary, the sweetest child, for whom all such blessings had been preparing the way. If Isaac's birth was cause for rejoicing in the patriarch's family, Mary's birth was cause for all of heaven and earth to rejoice, for she was the one who would restore heaven's loss and sanctify the world. When Noah was born, his father Lamech rejoiced, knowing that his son would be the means by which God would preserve the race through the ark and restore his blessings to the world. Genesis 5, verse 29. Yet all of these events existed only in preparation for Mary's birth, for she alone was to be the true ark of the new covenant, the perfect vessel of grace, the living tabernacle of the Most High. She would not merely preserve humanity from destruction. She would bring forth the Redeemer who would fill the earth with heavenly blessings. O blessed birth! O joyful arrival! Yours is the greatest delight of all past ages for the most holy Trinity, joy for the angels, solace for sinners, happiness for the just, and singular consolation for the saints who awaited you in the limbo of the fathers. O precious and resplendent pearl, emerging from the rough shell of this world into the light of the sun. O great and glorious child, though earthly eyes may barely perceive your first moments, the eyes of the Supreme King and all his heavenly court behold you in all your grandeur, exalted above all that is not God himself. May all generations bless you. May all nations recognize and praise your grace and beauty. May the whole earth be illumined by your birth. Let mortals rejoice, for their Redeemer's mother has been born. She has come to fill the void left by original sin, to restore what was lost. Blessed and magnified be your grace toward me, who am but dust and ashes. And if you permit, my lady, may I ask a question concerning the sacred mystery of your admirable and holy birth? What did the Most High do in that hour, when he brought you forth into the light of this world? Mary's ascent to heaven and the mystery of the closed gates. The question arises, how is it to be understood that you, most holy Virgin, were taken up in body to the empyrean heaven by the hands of the holy angels and beheld the divinity? According to the doctrine of the Holy Church and its theologians, heaven was closed to mankind due to original sin and remained inaccessible until your most holy Son opened it through his life, death, and resurrection. It was only when he ascended into heaven as our Redeemer and Head that the eternal gates were opened to humanity. If he was the first to enter, how was it possible for you to have been taken there before his glorious ascension? Mary, Queen of Heaven, responds, Beloved daughter, hear my response to your question. It is true that divine justice closed heaven to mortals because of original sin, and that it was my most holy Son who, through his life and death, fully atoned for mankind's transgression. Only after his passion and resurrection did he ascend in glory to open heaven for the redeemed, being the first to enter as their head. Had Adam never sinned, such a restriction would never have been imposed, and humanity would have been able to enter into the vision of God without the need for a Redeemer. However, due to the fall of the human race, the most holy Trinity decreed that the Son of God would become man, suffer, and rise again, reconciling mankind with the Father. This mystery was foretold by King David in Psalm 23, When speaking to the heavenly spirits, he twice declared, "Lift up your gates, O you princes, and be lifted up, O eternal gates, and the King of glory shall enter in." Here, David addresses the angels, calling them the gates of heaven, because while they had access to the divine presence, mankind did not. Though the heavenly spirits knew that the incarnate Word had broken the chains of sin, defeated death, and was ascending in glory with the just souls from limbo, they still marveled at this unprecedented event, asking, "Who is this King of glory?" For they wondered, how could a man, a member of that fallen race, now ascend into the eternal glory of heaven? The unfolding of this divine mystery would reveal the full triumph of the Redeemer and the extraordinary role of his mother, chosen before all ages, the triumph of Christ and the privileged grace of his mother. The angels themselves respond to their own question, declaring, "The Lord, strong and mighty in battle, the Lord of hosts, he is the King of glory." By this, they acknowledged that the man who had come to open the eternal gates was no mere mortal, nor was he subject to sin's law. Rather, he was both true man and true God, the mighty one who had defeated the strong enemy, stripping him of his dominion and power over the world. As the Lord of virtue, Christ commanded all virtues with sovereign authority, uncontested by sin or its effects. As the King of glory, he entered heaven triumphantly, distributing graces and eternal glory to those he had redeemed. Though he had suffered and died in his humanity as God, he elevated his chosen ones to the Beatific Vision, breaking the eternal barriers that sin had placed between them and heaven. My beloved soul, this is what my Son, true God and true man, accomplished. As the Lord of virtue and grace, he exalted me from the first moment of my immaculate conception, adorning me with gifts and privileges beyond all creatures. Since I was never touched by original sin, I was not bound by the same impediments that prevented other mortals from entering heaven. Instead, the powerful arm of my Son dealt with me as the Queen of heaven and Mistress of virtue. Because from my own flesh and blood he would take his human nature, he willed to prepare me beforehand, making me like him in purity, holiness, and grace. And just as I was never a slave to sin, so I exercised virtue not as one subject to it, but as one who ruled over it. I was not merely another child of Adam, but rather I was made like the Son of God himself, who is also my Son. For this reason, the heavenly spirits opened to me the eternal gates, recognizing that the Lord had created me purer than all the highest angels in heaven, and had ordained me as the Queen and Lady of all creation. And understand well, my dearest child, that the one who made the law can, without contradiction, dispense from it, as the Supreme Lord and Lawgiver did for me. Just as King Ahasuerus extended his scepter of mercy to Esther, Esther 4 verse 11, so too did God extend his clemency beyond the common laws of humanity, which concerned sin, so that they would not apply to me, who was destined to be the mother of the author of grace. Though I, as a mere creature, could not merit these gifts, the infinite mercy and goodness of God freely inclined toward me, regarding me as his humble servant, so that I might forever praise the author of such wonders. And you, my daughter, I desire that you too magnify and bless him for these gifts, daily offering and submission to God's will. The teaching I now give you is this. Since I have, in my loving mercy, chosen you as my disciple and companion, even though you are poor and unworthy, you must strive with all your strength to imitate me in a practice that I never omitted a single day of my life, no matter how many cares or labors I had. This practice was that every morning at dawn, I would prostrate myself in the presence of the Most High, offering him thanks and praise for his unchanging being and infinite perfections, and for having created me out of nothing. Recognizing myself as his creature and handiwork, I would bless and adore him, giving him all honor, magnificence, and divinity as my supreme Lord and Creator. I would then lift my spirit, placing my entire being in his hands with profound humility and total surrender, asking him to do with me as he willed that day and for the rest of my life. I begged him to teach me what was most pleasing to him, so that I might fulfill it perfectly. Throughout the day, I would repeat this offering in both external works and interior recollection. Before any action, I would consult His Majesty, asking for His counsel, permission, and blessing in all that I did. The power of the name of Mary. Be very devoted to my most sweet name. and know that the Almighty granted it such immense prerogatives and graces that, even when I beheld them in the divine presence, I felt deeply indebted and compelled to repay them. Every time my name Mary came to my mind, or whenever I heard myself called by it, it awakened in me great love, gratitude, and a desire to undertake great works in service of the Lord, who had given it to me. You share this same name, and so I desire that it produce in you the same effects. I want you to imitate me precisely in the teaching of this chapter, never failing to practice it from this day forward, no matter what obstacles arise. And if, through human weakness, you become distracted or negligent, return at once to the presence of the Lord and of me, confessing your fault with sorrow and humility. By maintaining this devotion, and frequently repeating acts of this holy exercise, you will avoid many imperfections and will gradually form the habit of seeking the highest virtues and the divine pleasure of the Most High. The Lord will not refuse His grace if you remain attentive to His light and keep your heart fixed on the most noble and most desirable object of your love and mine. That you give yourself entirely to listening, attending to, and obeying your spouse and Lord, who desires in you the purest, holiest, and most perfect submission, and a will that is swift and eager to carry it out.